Yitvoch Yosy.
I'm sure by now you already heard that President Trump was shot.
Yes, yes, yes. I saw him already.
Baruch Hashem, he's healthy. They didn't kill him.
No,
Okay, gewaltig. So
but
today,
this is very good. This is very good for Trump.
if they missed him, it's very good. But if they would have
Yeah,
gotten him, it wouldn't have been so good. Yeah. They see how far Wildewit and Fardishidik these Democrats are.
yeah. There were a bunch of chayas.
Yeah. Okay, so today we're learning about the halacha that if somebody has a bar in his property and his neighbor wants to build a bar, he has to leave space. How much space? So our Gemara yesterday, our Gemara on Erev Shabbos left off that the bor has to have a wall of 3 tefachim around, meaning that if someone wants to dig a bor in his property, he has to do the digging at least 3 tefachim from the property line. And this way, within his property, there is the 3 tefach wall around his bar. Now, if his neighbor on the other side of the property line wants to dig a bar, he must do the same thing. So, in essence, there's going to be a full 6 tefachim between the opening of my bar and the opening of the bar of my neighbor. Then the Gemara asked the Shaila. We've been discussing up until now, if my neighbor has a bar and I want to dig a bar right opposite his bar across the property line, on my side of the property line. But what about the first guy to build a bar in the first place? If I want to build a bar, you don't have a bar yet. Do I have to maintain any minimum distances? So the Gemara quotes a machloikis between Abaye, who says I don't have to maintain any minimum distance because you're not building a bar anyway, so there's no concern that your bar is going to collapse. Or Rava, who holds that even though you don't have a bar now, but you have a right to make a bar, and therefore I must build my bar, treating it as if your bar was there already, and maintain at least 3 tefachim from the edge of my property. And the Gemara had a discussion under what conditions Abaye and Rava have this machlokes. What if it's a field that gets plenty of rain, and it never ever needs boirus at all? So in the first nusach in the Gemara said that if it's a sada hasuyel boirus, if it's a sada that needs boirus, even Abaye would agree that you have to treat it as if there's a bar on the other side of the property line, because the likelihood is that your neighbor will need a bar as well. But in a sada she'ein hasuyel boirus, it gets plenty of rainwater. There's no need to have a bar. That's where there's a discussion. Abaye holds there, I don't have to keep any distance from the property line, while Rava says I must still keep a distance because just like you decided to build the bar, I might want to build the bar. The other lashon of the Gemara was everybody agrees that if it's a sada she'eino yasul boirus, everybody holds you could be sorry. Even Rava would agree. The whole machloikis that we have between Abaye and Rava, if it's a sada asuyel boirus, Abaye holds even though I have to assume you're going to build a bar, since I'm first, I could still make a bar right up against the property line. Why? Because right now at this point, I'm not doing any damage to you because you didn't build your bar yet. While Rava says, even though you didn't build your bar yet, as soon as you start digging, you're weakening my soil. Whether or not I built a bar or not, you're weakening my soil. And that is the machlokes that we had between Abaye and Rava. And the Gemara now is asking kashas on Rava and Abaye to see if we could slog up either side. We left off on Erev Shabbos by Toshma, which is 7 lines from the bottom on Daf Yud Zayin Lamed Beis. Now, before we learn this Toshma, one of the kashas that the Gemara asked on Abaye was from our Mishnah. And because of that kasha, Abaye had to change things a little bit. And it's important that we highlight that. So the Gemara asked the following kasha on Abaye. Besides the fact that Abaye said that in a place that Ein Suyil Boyros, Abaye holds you're allowed to build a bar, we have a problem. Because in our Mishnah said that you have to be 3 tfachim away. And Abaye said that you have to be 3 tfachim away, mikoisel boyre, which means I have to be 3 tfachim away from the wall of your bar, or 6 tfachim away from the bar itself. So the 2 holes have to be at least 6 tfachim apart. So Zok to Gemara, if you hold that the machlokes is by Sadeh Asuyil Boyres, if that's where the machlokes is, and even if there's an assumption, even if there's an assumption that Yen is going to build a bar eventually, Abai still holds that I'm allowed to build my bar here without any harchaka. But the problem is, Abai himself said that I have to stay away 3 tfachim from the kosher bar, which would indicate that no matter what, I, who's building it second, and you who built it first, each have to maintain that 3 tfachim wall. So it's shver and Abaye, because according to Abaye, if I'm building first, I can build it right up against the property, and then the next bar would only have to be 3 tfachim away. So the Gemara answered, Abaye is going to learn shot on our Mishnah, that our Mishnah is not speaking in a case where one person is built a bar first. Because in that case, he can build it right up against the property line. Our Mishnah is speaking when two neighbors came and they thought of the same idea at the same time to build a bar, Reuben on his side of the property line, and Shimon on his side of the property line, that's where they need to be 6 tefachim apart. But if only Reuben wanted to build a bar, Zok Abaye, he can build it right up against the property line, and he doesn't have to be 3 tefachim back from the property line. Now we could start 7 lines from the bottom on Yudayim Base Toshma. Sela hababu yadayim. What if you have earth that's so soft that you could literally scoop it out with your hands? So that means the walls in between the bars are even weaker than a standard earthen wall. So Sela hababu yadayim, zechay for boyre mikan. He could first build his bar on one side, and then the next guy can come along and build his bar. And marchik shloisha tvachim, they each have to stay away 3 tvachim from the property line. And visad besid, they're also going to have to smear the inside of their bar with sid to reinforce it. And vizeh marchik shloisha tvachim visad besid. So the kasha is, Frag to Gemara, you see clearly even the first guy to build a bar also has to maintain a distance of 3 tvachim. That would be shver on Abaye. Zok Gemara, Bo b'yadayim shiny. Normally, Avada Abaye doesn't require that you should stay 3 tvachim away from the property line if you're digging the hole by yourself and your neighbor is not digging the hole. But when you're talking about such soft soil, there the damage that you would do is so much greater, and therefore it requires the 3 tvachim. Freit the Gemara ka'arila, my ka'arila. So what was the Havamina to say otherwise? Of course you need to be marchik when you have very soft soil. Zok the Gemara, Bob b'yadayim et shrichel. There's a chiddush here of soft soil. Kisokadai de chamina, even the Bob b'yadayim liboy nami raf chatzfei. Who said 3 tvachim is enough of a harchaka? Maybe 3 tvachim is enough when your walls are good thick earth. But when there's soft sand, maybe you need to be 10 tvachim away. Maybe you need more. Kamashmalan, that's the whole chiddush of this brisa, that even though it's soft soil, the harchaka of 3 tvachim is still enough. Okay, so the Gemara asks another question. Toshma, marchikin is a gefes, vesa zevel vesamela. So this is from our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says, if you have a pile of gefes, it's something that generates heat. Vesa zevel, which is also generates heat. There's a melach, which generate heat. And now we could turn on to today's daf Yud Ches Amar Aleph. There's a sid, which generates heat as well. Rashi told us. There's a sloyim, which Rashi ties as flintstones, which also give off heat. Right? If it's near the wall of your friend, gimel tfachim, you have to stay away 3 tfachim. Oh, yisod basid, or if you don't want to stay 3 tfachim away, you would have to reinforce the wall of your bar with sid. So let's analyze this. Time of the ikakosa. You know why you have to stay away from your neighbor's property is because he has a wall put up. Holeka koisel. It's mashma. If he didn't have a wall put up, it's just flat ground. Soimich, you can dig your bar right up against his property line. Once again, that is a right to Abaye. And it's fair on Rava because according to Rava, even if there's nothing on the other side of the property line, I still have to maintain my 3 tfachim of distance. That's not a good diak to make for the Mishnah. Rather, kileka koisel nami loisam. Even if the koisel is not built on your neighbor's side, you still have to be 3 tvachim away. So why does our Mishnah talk about a case where there was already a koisel? The Mishnah should have said, no matter what, you can't dig a bore or keep these things near the property line. The hanu kashul koisel. The main focus of the Mishnah is just to tell us that these items are going to damage the wall. The Mishnah is not focusing in on what would be the halacha if there is a wall already. What would be the halacha if there's no wall already? The shaila of Rav and Abaye, the Mishnah is not getting into that. According to Rava, even if there's no wall there, according to Abaye, if there is a wall, the main point of the Mishnah is to teach us that these substances will erode the land and will be damaging to a nearby wall. Tashma, let's look at the next case of our very Mishnah. Marchikin es azroyim, you're not allowed to plant. That's a mechresha or plow. That's meriglayim or urinate, or maybe spilling meriglayim. We'll see in tomorrow's Gemara exactly what that means. Mina koisel shloisha tfachim. You have to stay 3 tfachim away from the koisel. Once again, the Gemara makes the same diuk that we've been making each time. Time of the ika koisel. The only reason why you have to stay away 3 tfachim is because there's already a koisel there. Lecha koisel. If there's no koisel there, samach, which is just like Abaye. And it's going to be Shver and Rava who holds, even if there's no koisel there, I have to stay away, as if there might be a koisel there. Zakamar, that's not a good diak to make, just like we said a moment ago. Loi, kileka koisel nami loi samach. Like Rava holds, even if there's no koisel across the property line, you're still not allowed to put any of these items or do any of these activities within 3 tfachim of the property line. So what is the point of the Mishnah? Kamash Malon, the misunta kashal koisel. All of these activities cause a condition called misunta. Misunta, Rashi tells us, is dover lach, moist things. So all of these things, when you're planting, we'll see it causes moisture because you're going to water. If you're plowing, it's going to end up causing moisture to get in as well. The moisture that gets in near the wall, in the soil, will deteriorate the wall. That's all the Mishnah is trying to tell us. So the Gemara goes to the next case of the Mishnah and makes the same diuk. Tashma, the Eser Rechayim, Gimel min Hashechev, Shein Dal ben Arech. You need to be 3 tvachim away from the property line with the lower stone of your mill, which would be 4 tvachim from the upper stone, because the upper stone we learned is smaller. Time of the koisel. Once again, that's only because there's a koisel, you have to maintain a distance of 3 tvachim from the property line. Haleka koisel, some should be able to. Once again, I ride to Abaye, a kash on Rava. So he leka koisel, nami lesamach. Avada, the Mishnah is just saying koisel, but even if there's no koisel, avada, you also have to stay away from the property line. So what is the Mishnah trying to teach us then? The tiraya koshel koisel. Vibration also damages a wall. And when the mill is operating, it creates a vibration which would be damaging to a nearby wall. Whether or not you have to maintain that distance even though there is no wall there on the other side of the property, that's totally in the machlokes Abaye and Rava, but the Mishnah is not a raya to either one. Tashma. Let's try another raya, again from the case of the Mishnah. There's a tanur shloishim min a kliya, shein dal min a sofa. 3 tvachim from the wide part of the oven, which is the lower half, which is 4 tvachim away from the top part of the oven. So the same shaila, time of the ikka koisel. The only reason why you have to be machik is because of the koisel there. Holeka koisel samach. Again, a raya Abaye shver. So kileka koisel nami loy samach. Even if there's no koisel there, the Mishnah also means to say you cannot be near the property line. So what is the Mishnah trying to teach us? A chiddush? The hevla kosher koisel. The heat that comes out of this oven is damaging to the koisel. Tashma. Now we're going to go to a brisa because we finished all Mishnah. So now we're going to go to a brisa once again. We're looking at the machlokes of Abaye and Rava. Abaye holds if there's no koisel or bor on the other side of the property line, you can build right up against the property line. And Rava holds no. Regardless, you have to stay away from the property line. Tashma. Lo yiftach odom chanush shal nachtumin. You shouldn't open up a bakery shop. A bakery shop generates a lot of heat. Or v'shel tzaboyin, or cooking the dye. So if you want to open up a shop that does dyeing, you're not allowed to open it up. Now, in those days, people lived in their places of work. You know, there are stores here in Toronto, variety stores, where people live there in the building. So that's how people worked in those days. If somebody had a bakery, it would be in his home. If he had a business of dyeing people's clothing, again, it would be done out of his home. So he's not allowed to do such an activity in his home. If his friend on the upper level happens to be storing grain there. Why not? Because it's going to it's going to rot things out. V'loy refes bakar, and you can't put a barn there. You can't hold animals there because the smell is going to cause damage. Let's have a look at Rashi. Rashi says, "Oitzer aliyah she'oitzrim batfua v'shemen v'yayin." What is the issue with having a bake shop or a dyeing shop below that? The smoke from the fire of the oven, the smoke from the fire of the pot that's cooking the dye is very harmful to the items that you would be storing above. Revis Bakr is not allowed because the odor from a barn will damage the oitzer that's right above. So Zog to Gemara, Taima, the oitzer. It seems like there's only a problem because before you opened up your business in your home, there was already an oitzer. And he's first. Halek oitzer. But if there was no oitzer there, we don't say of it. He would be able to. We don't say you're not allowed to open a bake shop because maybe he'll open up an oitzer later. Don't open up a dyeing shop. Maybe he'll open up later. Don't have a barn there. Maybe he's going to make an oitzer later. No. Only if it's there. So you see clearly the svar of Abaye, according to Rabbi, you shouldn't be allowed to do these things, even though your friend didn't even make the oitzer yet. So Dear Shiny, when you're talking about a shop that you have in your own home where you live, there you have a right to do things. And if you got there first, it's too bad. He can't stop you from doing normal functions that you do in your home. Now, if the oitzer was there first, then we'll tell you not to do it. But if the oitzer was not there, you go out there first and you did that, the person who wants to make an oitzer will have to find himself another place. Dekonami, I could even prove to you that that's the case. Titani Allah, we learned on this brisa an explanation. What did it say? If the refes bakar was there first, it's mutter. So it says black and white that if the refes got there first, you could leave it there. Let's have a look at the Heilige Rashi. Shiny, the last of the 4 top lines of Rashi. Shiny chanus, the refes bakar, the Rosh is another name. It's a home-based business. Because someone might make an oitzer one day, we're not going to prevent somebody from using this home as a normal person does, even operating a little shop out of it. Unless he's directly damaging an existing oitzer, we wouldn't prevent him from doing it. They kanami took Rashi, the deer is shiny. The katani lo dehi, we have a brisa that explained this brisa. Mhaisa reves bakar kademis leiter mutter. Dafka, when do you say that if the reference was there first? Dafka in these cases where it's oitzer. But of the chulu shar chagas tamasnizin, we had all the cases of our Mishnah where you can't have an oven near a guy's property, and you can't have a mill near a guy's property, and you can't plant, and you can't plow, and you can't have zevel, and you can't have zaysim, all the things you can't have. There's no brisa there that clarifies that if you were there first, you're allowed to. You're allowed to. Because there you're talking about the fields. In the fields, you're not allowed to do anything that might cause damage, even to a future construction that your neighbor will do. But in your house, you're allowed to. So here in this case, you know why you're allowed to do it first? Mishum the dira shiny, because it's your own home. But in the cases of our Mishnah, even the first one's not to be machik, like Rava said. Gewaltig. Let's see the next Tashma. So far, most of the kashas are asking a kasha on Rava. So let's see the next kasha. Tashma. Lo yita adam ilan samach l'sada. You're not allowed to plant your field, your tree, near the property line of your friend who has a regular field. Elam kain hirchik limenu dalad amos. You have to be 4 amos away. Vitani Allah. And we have a brisa that clarifies this mission. Dalad amos sha'amru. Why what's up is dalad amos? It's kedei avodas haker. Because when you have a tree, you're going to need to take your rig and work around the tree all the way around. And you need 4 amos to operate your rig. But if you're within 4 amos of your friend's property line, your rig is going to infringe. Your rig is going to infringe on his property. That is not allowed, and therefore you have to maintain 4 amos. Tanya law. Zok to Gemara. Taima, why must I move my tree 4 amos from the property line? It's because I need that place to work. What if there was no problem of avoidance haker? Then samach, you'd be allowed to make your tree right there. The problem is, besides the fact that when you're working around your tree, you're going to infringe on your neighbor's property, there's another huge problem. The roots from your tree are going to eventually cause damage in your friend's property. The afal gab, the ikashiroshin, the kamaski that are going to cause damage. And you see that's not a concern at all. You're allowed to make a tree on your property, and you don't have to worry about future damage that it might do. That's exactly what Abaya says. That's a kash on Rava. And for the head of the Gemara, the mafsif tzunma. Underneath the ground, there were boulders that lined the property line that would prevent any roots from growing through. So here we have a unique case where there is no potential future damage. The only concern here is that you're going to infringe on your friend's property when you have your rig working around the tree. That's why you need a gather. But as far as roots growing and what you're doing now, planting your tree, potentially damaging deep into your friend's property because of the roots, that's not a concern because we have an underground barrier. Okay, so the Gemara goes on to the next case. It's actually a shiloh if this is a new case or if this is a dekanami. But since we have brackets here, I'm going to read it like it's a new case. What if, in fact, there was a gate in between my property and your property? So then the halacha is, what are we referring to? Rashi says we're referring to a kerem on one side of the gather. One neighbor has a kerem, and the other neighbor has royim. So let's have a look at Rashi. Gather ben times, Dr. Rashi, she'ein mazikoi oid lavoidus a kerem. Now, there's no damage that I could possibly do by infringing on this property because there's a wall there. So then, one neighbor could have his trees right up against together, and he just won't be able to get to the other side. But too bad, but he has a gather there, so his neighbor's protected. Let's look at it. And if one of them was not a tree, someone at a wheat field, a grain field, Ein can climb, there wouldn't be climb, even though they're both right up against together, because that barrier is adequate. If there's vines, grapevines on one side of the gate, you're allowed to plant right on the other side of the gate without any type of distance, some other zera, and there won't be klai akar. Gabi nots arba kudison. It was talking about a case where you put 4 posts into the ground, umosach samar al gabeim, and you put some type of plant in between them to create even a flimsy barrier. The domil tzuris of Pesach, it'll look like a tzuris of Pesach. So that's the case. So Zok Rashi Katani Mia, but Lamaita, what did the Brisa say? Zesaimech. I v'afal gab the atli shroshim tachas agedu mispashtin osoichasota. What's the difference if there's a barrier? So it's not a shiloh climb. But the roots are still going to grow, and my roots from my tree are going to grow deep into your property and cause damage. Why isn't that a problem? Only Abaye would hold it's not a problem. Dr. Gemara, let's look at the sefer. What happens if my roots actually start growing into your property and start infringing onto your property? The halacha is you need to plow there, but there's roots there in the way. So the halacha is my miklahen shloisha tvachim kedei shel Yaakov ha'machreisha. If you have roots from your tree going into my property, I have a right to cut off all the roots that are within 3 tvachim of the surface, because that's how much depth I need to plow. And I don't want to bust up my plow blade because I hit one of your roots. So I can dig up and cut up all your roots until the point where I have clear 3 tvachim below the surface of the ground. So Zok to Gemara, the Brisa goes on. So the Gemara asks, if this Brisa is speaking in a case where in fact there's an underground barrier, how did those roots get through? My boy Hassam, how in the world did those roots get through there if we're speaking about an underground barrier? Dr. Gemara, that's not what the Brisa means. You know what the Brisa is saying? The lav tzumna. In the first case we're talking about where you had a tzumna, and therefore there's no concern of roots. But what if you didn't have a tzumma, you didn't have an underground barrier, and because of that the roots from property A grew into property B? So then, beautiful. Let's try another ayah. Tashema. The halacha is marchikin es ha'ilon min habor esrim v'chomesh am. If I want to plant a tree, I have to be 25 amas away from a bar that you might have. Zok the Gemara, time bar. I only have to be 25 amas away if there's a bar to be 25 amas away from. Haleka bar. What if you don't have any bar? Samach, I can have my tree near the property line. You don't say that automatically I always have to plant the tree 25 amas away from my property line. No, I only have to stay 25 amas away from your bar. I can be close to the property line. So once again, you have a raya to Abaye that you only need to take measures of distancing if there's an actual problem here, if there's an actual bar. But if there isn't not an actual bar, you don't have to take measures. So it's Shver and Rava who says you have to take measures anyway. So we're loy, hileka bar, nami loy samach. According to Rava, you're not allowed to be near the edge of your field, even if there's no bar on the other side. And the whole chiddush of this brisa is the yad chafei amo azli shroshim umaskila bar. So in fact, according to Rava, you're not allowed to plant a tree within 25 amas of your property line ever, because there might be somebody else who on the other side of the property line that might dig a bar one day, and your roots will damage it. Zok to Gemara, ihachi ema seifa. Let's look at the seifa. From Elon Kodam, what if you planted the tree first and then he built the bar? Lo yikuts. The person who built the bar has no right to demand that I cut my tree down because I was first. The problem is, according to Rava, it doesn't matter if you were first. If you were first, you still didn't have a right to plant a tree. You're not allowed to plant a tree within 25 amas at a property line. So, Frank the Gemara, if you did it illegally, according to Rava, plant your tree too close to the property line, how is it possible that you should have had a tree planted beheter first within 25 amas of the property line, and then later you should build the bar? You were never allowed to build it in the first place. Zok to Gemara, there's a hekatimsa where I could have built it in the first place and not have violated Rava's principle. Could the Amar Papa Belakeach, Bachanami Belakeach. Rav Papa is going to tell us later on, the case could have been where I owned the whole field and I planted a tree in my field. I'm allowed to plant a tree in my field, 25 amas from the closest property line. And then you know what I decided to do? I decided to sever half of my field and draw a line right near my tree and sell the half of the property that's from that line and on. Now, the person who bought the other half of the field is now subject to my tree that's right on this border. At the time I planted it, I had every right to plant it because the whole property belonged to me. Now it turns out that my tree is very close to the property line. So what happens in such a case where my tree came first? Lo yikot, you can't force me to cut down my tree. Zok more weiter. Toshma. Marchiken es a mishra min hayerek. What if I have vegetables that are growing and you want to create a soaking station to soak pishton, to soak flax? And if I have vegetables there, the mishra is going to damage the yerek. Or vesakrishin min abatzolim. If you have onions planted, you're not allowed to have on the other side crazy planted. I believe that's cress. Rashi is purosh. And if anybody has an art scroll and can tell me how it types of, I think it's cress or leek. So again, zog to Gemara weiter. Or vesachardel minat devorim. If someone has beehives and you want to now plant mustard, you can't plant it near the border. You got to stay far away. Zog to Gemara, in all these cases, it's mashma. The only reason why you have to keep your mishra away, or your krishin away, or your chardal away, is the ikayerik, because there's already a victim on the other side of the property line. Haleka yerek, if there was no yerek on the other side of the property line.
Our scroll says it's leaks.
Leaks. Okay, thank you. So time of ika yerek, haleka yerek, if there was no yerek on the other side, somebody could be allowed to, which is exactly like Abaye. Once again, is the catch on Rava. Avada, we pass like Rava. And even if there's no yerk on the other side, you still can never put your mishra near the property line. But Hakamash Malan, the only chiddush that the Bryce is teaching us is not about who was first. It's just focusing on which two things contradict each other. The Hani Kasha Adadi, that mishra is bad for yerek, and krishin are bad for betzolim, and chadol is bad for devorim. That's all it's trying to tell you. So let's stop a second and see if we can get a little detail of why these things are bad for each other. So Zok Rashi, what happens is if the bees eat mustard, their mouths get burny. Now they need to drink. So what do they go drink? They go drink their own honey. It sharpens their mouth, and therefore they want to alleviate the sharp taste of and what happens is the bees are going to eat up their own honey because of that. And now the person who's the beekeeper does not have any honey. So that's why Chaydel damages bees. Mishra damages Yerek, I guess because of the smell, the moisture, whatever it is, that there's a problem there. And creation of B'Salem could be, it takes too much nourishment from the kaka. I don't know the exact science behind it, but whatever it is, these two minim don't get along together. So Zok Gemara, you have a very good teretz so far on the Tanakam, on the Rabbanon of this price. The problem is there's a bar plucked over here. Rabbi Yosy mater b'chard. So it seems Pashup Shot, as we're going to read it now, and things are going to change a lot on Amud Beis. But right now it seems that Rabbi Yosy agrees that you have to keep the Mishra away from the Yerek. Rabbi Yosy agrees you have to keep the Krishin away from the Betzolim. But Rabbi Yosy knows, but you don't have to keep the Chadul away from the Dvarim. You know why? Because Mehecha Taisa, that you, Mr. Dvarim, is the Nizik, and I, Mr. Chadul, the Mazik, maybe it's Pum Fakeret. If they Shiyachaloy Maloi, You, Mr. Beehive, are telling me that I'm damaging you with my mustard. Maybe you're damaging me. Maybe, maybe I have a problem with your bees eating up my mustard. Maybe I got a problem. Who said you're the nizik? Maybe I'm the nizik. And therefore, we can call it even. And therefore, Yosy, neither one has to move. I can keep my bees up along the border, and you can keep your chardal up along the border. Frank the Gemara, the E, and let's turn on to Abed Beis now. The Idoloi Somach, if you're telling me, like Rava says, that neither one is allowed to put their product near the border first, how did it happen? I had my bees there first. You now come and put your chardal there. How is it possible that I ever had my bees there first? My bees are a mazik, so I wouldn't be allowed to put my bees near the border because you're going to put your chardal there. So therefore, according to Rabbi Yosy, what he's saying could not possibly have happened according to Rava, because according to Rabbi Yosy, you would never have been able to put your bees there, knowing that this guy might plant chardal there one day. So it's schwer on Rava how Rava will stem with Rabbi Yosy. Omar Papa, you know what the case is? Bilakeach. You know what happened? At first, I owned the whole property, and I set up my BI, and then I sold off half the property. So therefore, I had a right to have my BI there because when I placed my BI there originally, it wasn't posing a danger to anybody because I owned everything. Frankly, more even like Keach, if that's the case, then my time is the Rabbanon. According to the Rabbanon, why does the owner of the bees have a right to tell the chardal to move away? Why does he have a right to tell the chardal to move away? It's speaking about like so they each had a right to put it there. Zok to Gemara, Amai Marcha Kober Shus also. They did it with Rishus. So let's see Rashi. After he made the Mishra, or he already planted the chardal, then Machar Mechzas Adeyu La'achar. Then he sold half of his field to somebody else. V'alekeach Zara Sham Yerek, and Lekeach planted their Yerek, or Hamid Dvarim. So if that's the case, he had a right to plant this chardal there. If he had a right to plant this chardal there, why would your abundance say that the chardal has to move? That's question number one. Question number two, Void my time with Rabbi Yosy, why did Rabbi Yosy only comment by chardal and by Devarim? I feel a Mishra v'Yakanami. According to Rabbi Yosy, I should be allowed to keep my Mishra there because I had my Mishra there first. So Omar Avina, first let's deal with the Rabbanon. Kasavi Rabbanon ala mazik lahakakitzatz. The Rabbanon hold the mazik has to stay away. And Rashi is a huge chiddush. Even though the Mishra was there first, even though the chardal was there first, even though the creation was there first, and you might think I have a right to keep it there. No. If now I want to bring Devarim, now I want to bring Zera there, I have a right to force you, even though you were there first, to move. As Rashi says, Alamazak l'hachik, 2 lines in the bottom, there's a Jewish chiddush. Even though mitchila was done b'rishus, nevertheless, I have a right to ask you to move. So you're going to want to ask me, beautiful. Even though I put it there b'rishus, I had the right to have my mishra there. Once you plant there, I'm to move my mishra away. Didn't we have the case of the tree, where if I had the right to have the tree there first, then you don't have a right to make me cut my tree down. So why by a tree do we say I get to keep it? Why did you tell him just like you say over here that the person who has the mishra first or the chardal first has to move away? So Tosfos says there's a lot of rate about this. I'm just going to offer one little shot. Tosfos says because when you knock down a tree, that's mamash a hefted meruba. For a hefted meruba, since I had a right to plant it there, we won't make me move the tree. We won't cut the tree down. But to move a mishra is not such a big deal. To move a chayil plant is not such a big deal. Therefore, al mazik lahachik atzmai, even if the mazik, when he set it up, had a right to set it up because there's nobody else there. That's a huge chiddush. Zog to Gemara. So let's get back. Omar Avina kashavar abundant al mazik lahachik atzmai. So what about Rabbi Yosy? L'chal Rabbi Yosy shavar al nizik lahachik atzmai. Frank the Gemara el nizik. If it's the nizik lahachik atzmai, I feel a mishra v'yakanami. Let's go back to the same question we had before. Why is Rabbi Yosy making a distinction? Rabbi Yosy said that the same way, since I was there legally, you can't move me away. Well, by Mishra and Yakar also, if my Mishra was there legally, you can't move me away. So why did Rabbi Yosy only argue under Rabbanon by the case of Devarim and Chagul? Why didn't they also argue on the Rabbanon by Mishra and Yakar? Rabbi Yosy nami alamazik severely. Rabbi Yosy will agree that it's alamazik lahachik atzmai. This is what Rabbi Yosy told the Rabbanon. Teinach Mishra v'Yarka. I'll agree with you by Mishra v'Yarka, even though the Mishra was there first. Alamazik lahakachat atzmai, and v'balt alamazik lahakachat atzmai, he's got to move away, even though he was there first. Teinach Mishra v'Yarka. You know why? Because it's clear who the mazik is and who the nizik is. The Hani Maski, Hani, the Mishra is damaging the Zroyim. The Hani loy maski Hani, and the Zroyim are not causing any damage to the Mishra. So it's clear that the person making the Mishra, he's the mazik. Alamazik lahachas atzmai. Even though he built the Mishra and he had every right to do it, he still has to move away. Elos Dr. Yosy, elachaglu dvorim, tarvayu maski adadi. They're both mazikin. So they should both equally have to share in the expense of a hechaka. Why do we say that the dvorim can force the chayil to move? Therefore, if Dr. Yosy, why you Rabbana? Why would you say that it's incumbent on the chayil to move? It should be 50-50. And that is Rabbi Yosy's time. The Rabbanon say, no. I disagree with you. You say that Dvarim damage the chayil by eating them. I disagree with you. You know what? Even so, what type of damage can it be possibly due to a chayil? If you're going to say that they eat the seed, it's wrapped in the blossom they can't get to. And if you're going to tell me that they're eating from the leaves, Rashi teaches on Amar Aleph, Rashi teaches Tarfa. If anybody has a Gemara, for me to, I actually have a hard Gemara here. So how does Rashi touch Tarfa? He touches it, this Rashi for Tarfa is on Yutes Amar Aleph. So it says, if you were worried that the bee is going to eat the leaf of the tree, that's not a problem either, because Hadar Peri is going to grow back. So in fact, the bees don't do any damage to the mustard plant, but the mustard plant does damage to the bees, and therefore the owner of the mustard plant is the mazik, and all of the full responsibility of their chaka is only on the shoulders of the Bava, not on the Dvarim. Zok to Gemara. So you now came to a maskana pshat in Rabbi Yosy, is that V'savar Rabbi Yosy al hamazik lahachik atzmai. It's incumbent on the mazik to move, and the nizik doesn't have to do anything. I'm going to show you that that's not what Rabbi Yosy holds, because what nan we learned in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yosy Eimer abal pi shabor kodemes le'ilam, even though the bar came first. So kum dechois, the owner of the tree is a mamash hamazik. He had no right to plant the tree. Still lo yikutz. You still don't make the owner of the tree who's the mazik. He's surely the mazik. He doesn't have to cut down. You know why? I'm planting in my property. I don't have to be restricted by you. I can plant anywhere in my property, and you can dig anywhere in your property, but you can't make me be responsible for that. What does that tell me? It tells me I don't got to move my tree. Even though you were there first, you as the nizik have to relocate your bar. So we want to say over here that Rabbi Yosy holds alamazik lahachik atzmai in order to explain why it is that he agrees by Mishra. But clearly Rabbi Yosy doesn't hold like that. Rabbi Yosy holds alamazik lahachik atzmai. So even in the case of Mishra, why should the Mishra move? Let the Zroya move. And in fact, Rabbi Yosy holds, side by Mishra and side by Devarim, that the Bala Mishra could say, I'm not moving, you move. you're the nizik, you move. The Baal Hachadl can say to the Baal Dvarim, I'm not moving, you move, because you're the nizik. So what was his taina to the Rabbana? His taina is Uladevreim the Rabbana Karmelu. Really, Lididi, according to me, who I hold Beshita ala nizik lahak chasatzmai, ala nizik lahak chasatzmai, vafilu mishav yaka loy by rechuki. I argue with you across the board. Even by the Mishra Vayaka, I hold that the owner of the Yerk has to move. He's the Nizik. But even you, Rabbana, you hold the Lamazik Lachas Atzmai, so I understand why the Bala Mishra has to move, not the Bala Yerk. Tenech Mishra V'Yak, that I understand, because the Bala Mishra is the Mazik and the Yaka is the Nizik. The Hani Maski, Hani, Vani Le Maskani, I agree. Elachad L'Dvorim, Tavayu Maski Adod. Don't make him into the Mazik and him into the Nizik, because maybe the guy who you called the Mazik is actually a Nizik too, because Maski Adodi, and therefore it should still be equal. Don't make it completely incumbent on the Balachardel to move. Gemara, V'Rabbanon, they maintain the same halacha. Devarim Lachardel Maskile, Devarim don't damage the Chardel. Ibebinsa, if we're referring to the seed that's well protected, and the bees will not be able to get to it. And turning on to Amr Aleph, so we still need to understand. So according to Yosy, what is exactly the damage that's being done to the Chadal plant by the Dvarim? It can't be the leaf and it can't be the seed. So what is it? So let's turn back to Yud Chesamid base, and let's take a peek at Tosfos. Baruch Hashem, there's a lot of Tosfos to peek into here, but I just want to go to the bottom to look at a small Tosfos that hopefully I'll be able to find. Let me see if I can find the Tosfos. So let's look at the top Tosfos, Legluge Chardel, because that's what the Yosy said, that the Bala Chardel will tell the Bala Dvarim, your bees are eating up the Legluge of Chardel. Here's your Kodrus Prochim, it means the flowers. Uva Orach, so it's not the leaves and it's not the seeds, but it's the flowers. Uva Pirish Garin, the seed. I don't like Rashi's pshat, and I don't like the Orach's pshat, the resets. The Rabbanon said, the Varim Lachardo loy maski. The Rabbanon said that the Varim do not damage Chardo. Ibe benisa, ibe tarfa. Mashma, the loy Pirish Rabbi Yosy, bidvarav mine mazikin. It's mashma that Rabbi Yosy didn't specify to the Rabbanon precisely what damage bees do to the mustard plant. Well, that's why the Rabbanon were speculating. It can't be this, it can't be that, because they obviously don't know. Rabbi Yosy didn't tell them specifically what it was. So if you say L'Glule Chardel means specifically the Prochim, well, then they know what it is. Why are they speculating? Is it the seed? Is it the leaf? We know what it is. It's the flower. It says so first, L'Glule Chardel. So therefore, when you read the L'Glule Hemanofim, they're stems of the Chardel plant. The Hashta Loi Pirish Rabbi Yosy Mahem Azikot. Now Rabbi Yosy is not itemizing precisely what's being damaged. In other words, he said the stems being the plant. The Chardel plant is getting damaged, but Rabbi Yosy didn't specify specifically which part of the Chardel plant is getting damaged. Therefore, the Rabbanon have to speculate what part Rabbi Yosy might be referring to. But Lemaisa, they're going to eat the taka going to eat the flowers, and if it eats the flowers don't grow back. Without the flowers, you don't have any reproduction. So Lemaisa, there's damage there. So how could the Rabbanon say that there's no damage? The flowers are only there for a very short time, and therefore we're not closer that in that short time the bees will damage them. The couple of days that there's a flower there, the bees are not going to have a chance to damage it. And therefore, we're not concerned about the flowers. So at the end of the day, according to Tosfos, it's a mystery. We don't know what precisely Rabbi Yosy was talking about when he said that the bees are going to damage the chagol. But it's some mystery part. The Rabbanan reckons it can't be the seed and it can't be the leaves. Okay, Baruch Hashem, we were zeicher to finish Daf Yud Ches, Chai, Alabed Kedaf, Bava Basra, and we should be zeicher to finish the rest of the Masechta blot by blot, getting a chlorkite in these beautiful, beautiful sugyas. A good tavach.